Welcome back. Well, with us right now, we have another wonderful instructor from the Saddleback Emeritus Institute. We have Eva Marie Rodriguez-Morris, who teaches art history with the program. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
A little background of yourself. How did you get to this point where you are teaching art history?
Sure. Well, I went to Saddleback College myself right out of high school, and then went to work, had a family, and then knew I had to finish my education. So I went to University of California, Irvine, got all my degrees there, and then was fortunate enough to start teaching at Saddleback in the Fine Arts Division.
Okay.
So I was there teaching the students on campus, and then I received a wonderful opportunity to teach with the Emeritus program. So this is now my second year teaching art history in the Emeritus.
Very good. Now, when you were on campus, did you teach art history as well?
Yes.
You did?
I've always been in the art history world.
Now, we were talking beforehand, art history can encompass a wide range, a wide stretch of time. What do you focus on in the classes that you teach?
Well, I think for right now, one class I teach is I focus on like a survey to kind of give a little glimpse of these different art periods, because they actually build upon each other. And so, for example, with Impressionism, we all know Impressionism.
Right.
But it actually even started with late medieval, with how people depicted the human figure.
Okay.
And so you follow that through the Renaissance, through Baroque, through Rococo, and then you get to realism, and then you have Romanticism in there. And bringing that all together, you can understand how the movement of Impressionism started. And of course left this lasting impression, no pun intended, on society. And
I understand you also look at architecture in the form of the types of sculptures that might be on the sides of buildings, at the top of buildings, Gothic and so on. Absolutely.
I mean, architecture was such an integral part of the Gothic, and that's how we have a lot of the cathedrals that we have today still standing. And it's fascinating to see how sculpture changes in the church, and how they treat the story of the Bible, because during this time many people didn't read.
Oh, okay.
And so in some cathedrals they actually have portals, which is the doorways, but that are royal portals. So those are very beautiful because that's where the royal family would enter, but nobody else is allowed to go in there. So instead of just showing the royal portal to my students, I like to have them see the other doors, to get a better understanding, because with art history, we're looking at the visual to understand how society worked at that time.
Right, so these different portals, and I didn't even realize this, would they be for certain classes of people?
Just
at certain times they're...
Actually, it was just the royal portal would be just for the royal family and everyone else. But your access to the insides of the cathedral were dictated upon your social position.
Okay, and did you find when you look at all this that as far as all the different artwork that's there and how detailed it is, was it more so for the royal family or more so from the common folk that were walking in?
Well, once inside, it's a different story, because now it's about the religious experience and such. And it's interesting how the order of the church service, for example, kind of set the tone of how architecture was done. The cloisters, for example, when they had to isolate the monks and the nuns, that's how we have the cloister now. And then there's art involved with the cloister by having the columns, and we have sculptures at the tops of the columns that would have Bible stories. So when monks and nuns were walking around the cloisters, they would be reminded of their purpose, of why they were there, and such.
Interesting.
It's all very interesting. I love it.
Now you go beyond this as well in your class.
Absolutely.
You look at whole eras, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We just finished the Renaissance, of course, looking at the three masters, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. And then also, though, looked at how the Renaissance came across in Northern Europe, which was a little different. And what's fascinating is to see that even during this time, there was a lot of transfer of information between South Italy and then Northern Europe. And a lot of these artists, they traveled. They were very aware of who each other was.
Oh, interesting.
And such. It was. So it's really interesting to find letters of correspondence back and forth. A German artist, Albert Dürer, for example, traveled down to Venice and to Rome to see the three greats,
Yeah.
and that influenced his work. He takes it back up north. So it's fun to share those types of insights.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yes.
Now, as far as art history goes, how far does your class take it? Are there different courses that you have, like the first one, the second one, and there are different eras?
Well, that's one thing I really appreciate about the Emeritus is that they want the students to have this great learning experience.
Right.
So we're not boxed in saying you have to get from point A to point B or else.
Right.
And so it's really taking a feel of your students. So this semester I'm teaching, we're going to hopefully get through probably the Impressionism.
Okay.
And that's just because there's so much to share. Next week we're going to be in Baroque, and then we move forward to Impressionism. Next semester I'm really excited because I will be teaching in Laguna Woods on Mondays mornings, and that will be more of a topical approach.
Okay.
So we'll be looking, spending a few weeks on Impressionism. And the idea behind that is to truly understand and to share how it started and where these artists came, because being an artist is so different in 19th century France than it was even in the Renaissance era.
Right.
Where these gentlemen in France have to earn a money. It's like, I have to paint so I can sell.
Right.
As opposed to having big commissions and such, which most of the famous artists that we know today had in the Renaissance. And then we're going to also be looking at architecture. International architecture, today's architects are doing amazing buildings based upon software and the computers and how that's changed.
Right.
So focusing on architecture. And another topic we're going to be studying is the Grand Tour, which is a education tour taken by mainly Englishmen, starting about the 16th, 17th century on. So that's looking at a lot of these landmarks through 19th century photography. And we have diaries of how they traveled and what they saw and being experienced and their experience.
Wow, a lot to cover.
Yes, so I love it all.
So you are going to be teaching here in the village,
Yes.
starting in the spring.
In the spring,
in January,
on
I
Mondays,
guess.
yes.
Okay, very good. And is it just called Art History if somebody wants to look for the course?
I believe it's Art History 25.
Okay,
on
very
the
good.
Emeritus website.
So you can find that on the Emeritus website at saddleback.edu/emeritus. Sounds like a very interesting course, and art history certainly covers a lot, that's for sure. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And great program that Emeritus has. All kinds of different classes that you can take, and all the instructors I ever talk to always say how wonderful experience it is for them as well.
Very much so.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, maybe we'll see you again, and we'll be right back. Yeah, it's